Did you know? The Nintendo DS went through a number of different name changes during its development. Nintendo President Satoru Iwata revealed in an interview for WarioWare DIY that the codename Iris was used for a next-generation device that was planned to succeed the Game Boy Advance. The Iris name is derived from the Japanese plant, the Iris insata. This is evident by the name of Intelligent Systems' official DS emulator provided with DS development kits, Insata. By the time the prototype had developed into a console that featured two identically sized screens, it went by the codename Nitro. This can be seen on Nintendo hardware and software, abbreviated to NTR. Of course, the name was finally settled as Nintendo DS, which actually has two meanings. The DS in Nintendo DS stands for both Developer System and Dual Screen. The handheld did potentially have another name, however. In March 2004, Nintendo of America filed a trademark for the name City Boy. Nintendo apparently thought the name City Boy would appeal to a young adult demographic with a busy, on-the-go city lifestyle. It's also thought that they hoped the name would transform the Game Boy brand from being seen as a child's toy to something more mature. This lines up with Nintendo's philosophy with the DS. Nintendo effectively used celebrity endorsements to encourage older people and women to take the Nintendo DS brand seriously. The idea of a handheld tailored for city life is still a part of Nintendo's philosophy, as evident by how much they've invested in the more social capabilities of the Nintendo 3DS, like Spot Pass and Street Pass. City Boy is also thought to be a name reserved for a backup handheld in case the DS failed. If it did fail, Nintendo could simply go back and continue the Game Boy line of handhelds. Of course, the DS and even its successor, the Nintendo 3DS, went on to be a major hit. The DS sold well over 150 million units, making it the best-selling handheld games console to date, and the second best-selling video game console of all time. As with its Game Boy predecessors, the DS went through a few different updated designs, including the DS Lite, DSi, and DSi XL. The design of the various DS iterations harken back to Nintendo's very first handheld line, the Game & Watch. In particular, the white DS Lite bears a striking resemblance to the Legend of Zelda Game & Watch, released in 1989. Speaking of 1980s Nintendo games, there's a couple of fun little secrets hidden in the Nintendo DSi sound recorder. After recording a sound clip, selecting it, and leaving it idle for a minute, the sound will be remixed into the classic Super Mario Bros. Overworld theme. The 3DS had a few similar Easter eggs. Blowing into the microphone causes icons on the menu to spin around. The system settings icon in particular revealed that on the back of one of the icons is the Wi-Fi helper, hiding just out of sight. And in the 3DS's sound app, when playing a sound file, switching to the Game & Watch soccer background and pressing any button will allow you to take control and play the game. Although Nintendo puts a considerable amount of effort into piracy protection for their products, the DS was a huge victim of piracy. Since the release of the system, a great deal of hacking has occurred involving the DS's fully rewritable firmware, Wi-Fi connection, game cards that allow SD storage, and software use. This piracy has majorly affected the console's sales in other countries, most particularly in Europe, where the sales of the DS software plummeted by almost 50% due to companies importing devices such as the R4, which allowed game ROMs to be downloaded from the internet and illegally played on the device. In 2008, Nintendo and a total of 54 other video game companies banded together and filed a lawsuit to put a stop to the R4 devices killing sales of the system. They used an unfair competition prevention law as the legal grounding, stating that such devices hurt the growth of the entire game industry. The invention of the DS's second screen not only created new game design opportunities for developers to utilize, but it also allowed them to give significant updates to older titles that were ported to the system. A notable series of DS ports were the cult classic Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games. The first three titles of this Capcom-developed series were released in Japan as Game Boy Advance games, and were each ported to the DS a few years later. These ports contain more convenient functions, such as the touchscreen serving as a folder to easily access evidence and profile information. You could even shout the words "Objection, take that, and hold it" into the DS's microphone at certain moments when presenting your evidence in the court. An entirely new case was also created for the first Phoenix Wright game called Rise from the Ashes, with a section built to utilize the touchscreen and microphone specifically, such as spraying luminol, dusting for fingerprints, and even inspecting pieces of evidence as 3D models thanks to the system's superior processing power compared to the Game Boy Advance. The game's soundtracks also received a massive upgrade in quality. In a previous episode, we mentioned how an original original Game Boy managed to survive through a war zone, still perfectly functional for years after it was burnt to a crisp. The Nintendo DS survived a perilous journey of its own. In 2005, two mountain climbers, Neil Mueller and Chris Grubb, climbed Mount Everest with a Nintendo DS in tow. A huge amount of electronic equipment that was brought along, including a CB radio, Dell computer, and 4 MP3 players, all broke down from the extremely high altitudes, but the Nintendo DS managed to hang in there. A piece of gaming history made it to the top of Earth's highest mountain. The two men apparently enjoy playing Madden during their ascent. The DS was, however, designed with durability in mind. Nintendo refused to develop any Nintendo DS prototype farther until it could survive a 1.5 meter or 5 feet drop 10 times without any loss in functionality. This height was chosen because it's roughly the height of an average adult's breast pocket. Nintendo President Satoru Iwata stated, "I told them to make it so it could survive being dropped from 1.5 meters onto concrete." The hardware design team screamed, but proceeded to figure out how to pass the test. It's rumored that this is partly why Nintendo opted for the clamshell design with the DS, and eventually the 3DS console. That's all for today, but don't forget to subscribe to DidYouKnowGaming and follow DidYouKnowGaming on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you also check out DidYouKnowGaming.com, and if you like this video, check out our other videos. And if you like the sound of my voice and want to learn more about the Nintendo DS's awesome library of games, check out my top 5 DS games video. Peanut Butter Gamer's in it. Maybe you know that guy. And if you like Pokemon trivia videos, I've got a ton of them. Check out my series Pokemon Weird Facts and Trivia because it's got a lot of exactly what I titled it.